Today on the 1UpBeat. We do a little catching up on some arrangement albums and dig into 4 great albums released in 2021. You'll hear music from Final Fantasy, ACTRAISER, and more.
Since 1996, this is the Cinematic Sound Radio Network.
Welcome back to the show. I just wanted to pop out a quick episode and share some music that I sort of neglected to share last year. At the time of recording, it's 2022 now, near the end of the year, and I always regretted not doing a highlight of arrangement albums from 2021. Time just got away from us all, I guess. But there was some great stuff last year, so I thought, what the hell, let's just do some 2021 before we do 2022 albums. So let's get right into things so we can enjoy some music. ACTRAISER is a game that gained a lot more relevance with a surprise remake in 2021, but before anyone had any idea that that was coming, in January, the ACTRAISER original soundtrack and symphonic suite was released. ACTRAISER is one of the great orchestral achievements of composer Yuzo Koshiro. The game itself is a combination of 2D platforming and city building. You play as, quote, the Master in the English version, but it's literally just that you're playing as God. Of course, you have to remember that this game came out during an era of Nintendo games where all religious references were censored. During the 2D sections, you play as an animated statue and as an angel during the city building sections. The game has a strong cult following, but now with the remake, it's been exposed to an entirely new generation of players. Even better, the remake is pretty damn good. It's actually worth checking out. Koshiro's score is grand and epic, and fitting for a live orchestral performance. Luckily, it received one pretty early on, in 1991, performed by the Shinsei Nihon Symphonic Orchestra. Today, the symphonic suite is a collection of new arrangements by Yuichi Haneda, and a performance by the New Japan BGM Philharmonic Orchestra. The performance is actually from a 2018 concert, but included here on the album by Wayo Records, along with the original soundtrack. My original intention with including this album on the show was to introduce people to ACTRAISER for the first time. Hopefully, thanks to the remake, it'll be to share some great orchestral arrangements from the game for those that have played it already. Either way, please enjoy music from ACTRAISER, composed by Yuzo Koshiro.
the home of the best video game music coming out of your speakers. This is the 1UpBeat on Cinematic Sound Radio.
What's a more reliably enjoyable arrangement album than a piano collections album? How about the Final Fantasy piano arrangement albums? Final Fantasy piano arrangement albums have been reliably coming out since 1992 with Final Fantasy IV's piano album. Just always delightful interpretations of music from the series. Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles never really got the love it deserved. It came a generation after Final Fantasy made the jump from Nintendo to PlayStation, so when GameCube was going to receive an exclusive Final Fantasy game, it ended up making a much smaller impact than people hoped it would. It's a real shame too, because there are so many people who hold that game very near and dear to their hearts. After receiving a disappointing remake in 2020, Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles received a long overdue piano collections album on April 7, 2021. The music was arranged and performed by the original game's composer, Kumi Tanioka, with some tracks arranged and performed by Yui Morishita. When you listen to these tracks that we'll play in a moment, you'll wonder how the game didn't catch as much attention as it obviously deserves. The truth? It's probably because of it being on the GameCube, a console that was struggling to stay relevant next to the world domination of the PlayStation 2. Nevertheless, the music is as beautiful as can be and shines on the piano. Sit back and relax and enjoy our piano arrangement segment of the show. Here's Piano Collection's Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, with music composed by Kumi Tanioka, arranged and performed by Yui Morishita and the composer.
You are listening to the 1UpBeat on Cinematic Sound Radio.
So imagine for a moment that you're a legendary game composer, and almost 25 years ago you wrote one of the best game soundtracks of all time. It was so good that for almost a quarter century you're watching fan after fan cover the music from the game. In the last number of years, you've seen a bunch of them actually make money off of covering music by obtaining the rights to selling those covers. At what point do you smack yourself in the head and wonder why you didn't just do this yourself a long time ago? Well, the great Grant Kirkhope realized this and in 2021 released his first Banjo Kazooie arrangement album titled Banjo Kazooie Rejiggied. The album is available digitally and recently on vinyl. It's way cooler than you would imagine too, because on each track, Kirkhope sort of gives the piece a totally new interpretation. It's also usually not a situation where it's just one style that plays on loop for 3 to 4 minutes. There's a lot of morphing of the music throughout the arrangements. All of your favorite BK music is here, from Bubble Gloop Swamp to Freeze Easy Peak and beyond. I'm not usually one for just plain remixes or covers of music, because anyone can do that, but I think it's way more interesting when it's the composer himself doing it. You know, what is the interpretation of the man who wrote the music over 20 years removed? Definitely go out and buy the album. Support the poor guy. He needs to eat. Here's Banjo Kazooie Rejiggied, composed and arranged by Grant Kirkhope.
The best music ever recorded for video games is here on the 1UpBeat with your host, Eric Silver.
And that brings us to the end of the show and our final favorite arrangement album of 2021. I do my fair share of complaining about great orchestral music that doesn't sound good. Either it's the company where they hire an orchestral music writer for the game's composer and then force them to work with cheap MIDI, or just covers and arrangements where they're the same thing. What's the point of an arrangement if you're just going to basically transcribe music with cheap digital instruments? Well, of course, in the case of orchestral music, it's tricky. Not everyone has access to a full orchestra that they can call up and ask to assemble to perform their pet arrangement project. So how do you get around this? You basically construct an orchestra from a lot of smaller players. I'm sure there are quite a few game scores that you've heard and you were impressed with how the orchestra sounded, not realizing that it was either just one or two real instruments played over synths that creates the illusion of all real instruments, or constructed together to make the ensemble sound larger than it is. The latter concept is the case for Generations, a symphonic tale by John Paul Hayward. Hayward, a big fan of classic JRPGs, writes fully orchestral arrangements of classic RPG music, but is only working with 15 instrumentalists. Most of the performers here are doubling parts, recording independently, and then it's up to Hayward to go in and edit the thing to death in what results in what sounds like a full orchestra recorded in a big hall. Frankly, the end results sound like a better mix than most modern film scores. It's really wild what you could do with the technology we have to produce great, fantastic sounding music with so little. We're going to feature 3 tracks from the album here today. The fun part is this year, 2022, they represent games from 20, 25, and 30 years ago. We have XENOSAGA from 2002, Final Fantasy VII from 1997, and Final Fantasy V from 1992. FF5 gets great representation on the album, with it taking up the last 5 tracks. Final Fantasy V is a very underappreciated game. It came between 4 and 6, 2 of the most popular and important RPGs of all time, and in the case of the Western world, it was skipped over the first time, only eventually showing up in the US in 1999 on the PlayStation. So here, enjoy some great orchestral music playing. Here is Generations, a symphonic tale, arranged by John Paul Hayward. Thanks for tuning into this episode, and we hope you'll join us again when we return with another episode of The 1UpBeat. I am Eric Silver.
Thank you for listening to the Cinematic Sound Radio Podcast. I want to thank Tim Burton for providing his voice for all the bumpers you hear throughout the program, and to David Coscina for providing Cinematic Sound Radio's theme music. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please email us at cinematicsound@yahoo.com. You can find us on social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And wherever you're listening to us today, please take a moment right now to leave us a rating and a review of the podcast. You can get a Cinematic Sound Radio t-shirt at our TeePublic store. You can join our Patreon at patreon.com/cinematicsoundradio. And don't forget to check us out on the web at cinematicsound.net.